Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea. We are continuing our journey down the bunny trail with Terry Miles's rabbits, and well, it's getting interesting. We're getting a good setup for our lead character Kay, and let's get into this thing.
Emily stared down at the journal in her lap. The pages were completely covered in tiny words, numbers, and sketches. It looked familiar to me.
Something looking familiar and knowing what it is, sometimes two different things.
Not the content, but the style. It was similar to the things my friends and I would scribble onto graph paper while playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, and 80s and early 90s scribbles on paper were kind of kind of ornate, to be honest with you.
Emily circled some numbers she'd written above what appeared to be a collection of names and symbols. She thought about something for a moment. Then she added the numbers together, leaned back, and exhaled. 107.3.
107.3. Right offhand, that sounds like a radio station to me, but I've read this before, and I'm trying to pull it out of memory. It might be a radio station, it might not. It may just be a freak. So, let us continue and see if I'm right or wrong,
she announced. I was silent. Watching Emily Connors do math was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen in my life.
I think Kay is kind of sweet on Emily, just to be honest with you. When you remark about how pretty somebody is doing math, you're sweet on that person.
She put the journal away and turned to me, her expression grave. You can't tell anybody about what's going to happen tonight.
I don't think she plans on it.
I won't, I said. I'm serious. She grabbed my wrist hard. You have to promise. I won't tell anybody.
I think she's promising.
But Emily's eyes indicated that she needed more.
Well, I say she because it's a female voice. In interviews that I've read with Terry Miles, he intentionally wrote the character Kay without giving any gender-specific details. So the reader could partially imprint themselves onto the character. So and because I'm hearing a female voice in the headphones, I'm saying she, but it's not necessarily. If you're listening to it and you're thinking it's a she, that's cool. Or if you're thinking it's a he, that's cool too. Or anything in between or neither, But Terry Miles intentionally wrote the character that way.
Won't. I promise. I swear. I held up my pinky. Emily ignored my pinky and stared into my eyes for what felt like forever. Then,
which is probably only a couple seconds,
seemingly satisfied with whatever she'd found there, she double-checked the information in her journal and slid it back into her purse. Annie popped out the Tori Amos cassette. What's the number again? 107.3, Emily answered.
It was a radio station. The silly putty has some kind of spark to it.
Got it. Annie slowly turned the dial to that number. There was nothing but static. Are you sure this is it? I hope so.
I think it also jarred my brain because I listen to when I'm not listening to Spotify, like if I'm running to the convenience store or something, and it's not worth booting up the Spotify on the truck, the oldie station I listen to is 106.3. So it's that 107 point whatever is close enough that it kicks that memory. I need to do something about leveling my mic stand.
Emily adjusted the volume on the radio, then turned to the two of us and smiled. It was beautiful and unnerving. In my experience, Emily Connors wasn't the kind of girl who smiled.
Or at least not a whole lot.
Time? Emily asked Annie, suddenly all business. 6 minutes after 10, Annie replied. Emily touched my arm and said, "Whatever you do, don't freak out, okay?" I did my best to look cool as Emily put the truck into drive and guided us back out onto the old logging road.
Uh-oh. This does not sound good.
We'd been listening to the static from the radio for about a minute or so when Emily nodded to her sister, then pressed the lever that turned off the truck's headlights. Black. We were driving at the same speed, but now I couldn't see a thing. We were completely blind.
Play that game a few times in my early to mid-20s on Highway 30, down Demons Road, and a couple other places. So that is dangerous, and it's kind of exhilarating, to be honest with you. Wouldn't do it now. I am way unskilled enough right now to do that. My reflexes aren't what they were when I was in my 20s.
Static from the radio filled the cab. Emily, I don't think... Shh! Emily grabbed my arm again, hard enough that she actually left 4 bruises.
Ow! I mean, you can leave red marks, even welts, grabbing someone pretty hard, but you grab them hard enough to leave bruises? Ow!
1 from each finger. Listen. I shut up and listened. Did you hear a voice? Emily asked. Annie shrugged. Clearly, she hadn't heard anything. Emily looked at me and I just shook my head. I was trying, but I found it hard to focus due to the constant static and the situation. Sitting in a truck with Emily and Annie Connors, speeding along an old logging road in complete and total darkness.
The thing is we got a lot of logging roads that run through the Sam Houston National Forest here. And they're dangerous to drive during the day with good weather. I don't know what logging roads are like in Washington State, but if they're anything like the ones here in Texas or East Texas, woo, that's kind of ballsy. Well, in their case, I guess you would say overly. I don't know.
Wasn't standard operating procedure for me. What was that? Emily turned up the radio. Please tell me you heard that. I think so, I lied. I still hadn't heard anything except for a steady stream of noise. My head was aching. The static from the radio tickled my ears and a thick, fuzzy hum began vibrating, moving upward from somewhere deep inside my chest.
Okay, yeah. Let's go ahead and call this one good here. Good cliffhanger place. Then we'll come back in the next video and find out what happened. So remember, people, be a good person Or actually, be good to people. I'm screwing that up all kinds of ways. Okay, start over. Be a good human. Be good to other humans. Peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?